I think states should decide the issue of marriage, and states should decide the issue of abortion. We should have a law at the federal level that would say after 15 weeks, no abortion on demand.
John Bissam. Political flip-flopping doesn't get much more obvious than that, folks. That was Lindsey Graham, just about 5 weeks apart. His new 15-week federal abortion ban proposal bringing in a new wave of headlines on this issue just weeks ahead of the midterm elections, when the GOP is trying to keep quiet on the issue. So it begs the question, why? Well, one Washington Post columnist, Philip Bump, he had a couple of theories. The proposal could turn abortion into a, quote, turnout driver for the right. Or maybe the idea of 15 weeks can make the GOP seem more moderate, defining a middle ground position for the party. Even if he's betting that most Americans don't like the idea of later-term abortions, the polling is clear. According to the Pew Research Center, most Americans believe it should be legal in all or most cases. And it seems like most other Republicans aren't jumping to back Graham's horse.
I would take a look at the bill, but again, I said that, you know, we really should let the states kind of take that initial role.
What if they're
we'll
with a 6-week thing?
Are you
supporting a 6-week ban?
I support the fact that you've got, we the people can decide this in 50 states, okay?
I think most of the members of my conference prefer that this be dealt with at the state level.
Joining me now on set, MSNBC political analyst Fernand and former House representative and political analyst also Carlos Curbelo. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. People don't know, but Fernand's in a boot here. I was saying Carlos maybe got into it with you in the green room, right?
Politics is a contact sport.
Well, it must be, but yeah, but there's love here. There's only love here. Carlos, I want to start with you. Timing of this, baffling. I personally also think this whole migrant busing thing, and we'll get to it in a minute, is to distract from what happened, frankly, with Lindsey Graham earlier this week. But tell us your thoughts. Former Republican Party member, what is going on? Why would you do this right before the November midterms if you're Lindsey Graham?
Well, Katie, I was in D.C. this week, and I can tell you that everyone is dumbfounded by this. I spoke to a lot of congressional Republicans. I said, what is Lindsey doing? It doesn't make sense. This is an issue that has put Republicans on defense since the Roe reversal, and now Lindsey Graham is bringing it to prominence at a time when Democrats are growing in the polls and Republicans are struggling, right? Expectations are now lower for Republican performance in the November election, so no one understands why Lindsey Graham is doing this.
You know, Fernand, though, there is a portion of this proposed federal abortion ban that does deal with exceptions for rape, incest, you know, safety and health of the mother. Do you think this really is this kinder, gentler Lindsey Graham federal abortion ban to try to appeal to the, quote, more moderates in the party to get them to say, okay, it's okay for me to go to vote in November?
No, Katie, I think it's base politics, MAGA GOP-based politics more than anything else, because fundamentally, the polls now are consistent. The polls are crystal clear. The American public does not want anything hinting at an abortion ban, whether it's even in the states or whether it's at the national level. So to Representative Curbelo's point, it's really a dumbfounding move now when the conversation is not what the Republicans want to make about it. You heard those clips earlier about abortion. They'd rather talk about other issues. So it's really Lindsey Graham again kind of upending the apple cart, and I think it's going to have negative repercussions for the Republicans.
I think it's kind of fascinating because it kind of shows the underbelly of the GOP party. The fact that they're not really coordinated on the messaging and they're not really coordinated on this position. I have to have this conversation because you guys are here. We are Floridians. We know South Florida very well. Carlos, I'm going to start with you. What's going on with this migrant, I'm going to call it kidnapping, although you may not, but Ron DeSantis, taking people from Texas, having them touch down for a hot second in Crestview, Florida, to end up with them ultimately in Martha's Vineyard. It's clearly a political stunt, but it's Venezuelans, and we know how important the Venezuelan vote is to the GOP here in Florida. Why risk, if you're DeSantis and you're running to maintain your seat as governor, why risk potentially angering Venezuelans down here?
Yeah, Katie, I mean, we know that a lot of this is about 2024, right? Ron DeSantis is trying to position himself versus other Republican governors versus Donald Trump for the 2024 Republican primaries. But this might have been an overreach. I mean, look, I think a lot of even conservative voters understand that states like Texas and Arizona might be engaging in these practices. The migrants are arriving in those states. Obviously, there's a strain on social services there. So aggressive move, but I think some people say, well, we get it. But for Florida taxpayers to fund a very expensive operation, by the way.
$600-something thousand dollars to do this.
This is not chump change, right? To fund this operation, to move people from Texas to Massachusetts, the governor had trouble explaining that, and for good reason. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then you introduce to that the South Florida angle, where there's so much solidarity between Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Cubans, Colombians. And now I do think the governor is actually introducing some risk to his 2022 reelection prospects. Still the strong favorite, no question. But I think some people in these communities might start saying, hey, what's going on here with this?
Fernand.
You know, Katie, first off, I take exception to calling this a political stunt. A political stunt is Dr. Oz running for the Senate in Pennsylvania when he really lives in New Jersey. That's a political stunt. This is an act of evil. Congressman Curbelo and myself, our parents came to Florida under Ferris Bryant, who was the governor of Florida. And at that point, Ferris Bryant, a Democrat, said, come on in, make a life here. He ended up becoming a member of Congress. I'm sitting here with you here on this program talking about these issues because a Democratic governor gave our families the opportunity to live out the American dream as citizens who sought legal asylum. This evil man, Ron DeSantis, this coyote who is engaged in human trafficking, because that's what this is, to use human beings and more devilishly children, innocent children, as political pawns is something that's beyond politics. It's even beyond legality. It disqualifies him as a human being. And unfortunately, it's where aspects of the Republican Party are right now. And until that changes, our country is not going to go on the right path again.
We saw that coverage right now, the breaking news. They're ending up now, courtesy of Greg Abbott, in front of Kamala Harris's home, but there's newborns. I mean, and these are not people that just flew in first class from Venezuela and other countries.
Yeah,
they
Katie,
needed a place to go.
I think there's two truths here. Number one, the situation at the border is chaotic.
Yes.
Most Americans do not support this disorderly immigration system that we have in the United States. That has to change, and we know Republicans are aware of that. They're trying to shine a light on it. This is not a good way to do that. I mean, these are human beings. A lot of them are desperate. A lot of them are hungry. They're anxious. So there's a better way to shine a light on all the trouble at the border. We have to do better there. But this effort to gain attention by using these individuals, it just doesn't seem right.
It's inhumane. Gentlemen, thank you for being here this morning. And your parents would be very proud of you, too. Do not undercut your value to this, too, Fernand. Fernand Amandi, Carlos Curbelo, thank you for being here.